Have you ever just looked up at the sky, seen a 400-ton jumbo jet cruising by, and just wondered, how? I mean, how in the world does that massive piece of metal defy gravity so gracefully? Well, I can tell you, it's not magic, it's an incredible symphony of physics. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how it all works. Let's get into it. Our journey really starts right here, inside a wind tunnel. Think of this as the laboratory where engineers and scientists get to perfect the elegant physics that lets these amazing machines just soar through the air. You know, every single curve, every angle of an airplane is tested and refined in places just like this, all to conquer the sky.
All right, so here's our flight plan. We're going to start with the 4 fundamental forces of flight. Then we'll dive into the real secret of how a wing creates lift. After that, we'll look at how planes actually stay stable up there, see what happens when they break the sound barrier, and finally, we'll pull it all together.
First up, the 4 forces of flight. I want you to picture any airplane in the sky, and imagine it's in the middle of a constant 4-way tug-of-war with nature itself. Seriously, understanding this battle is the absolute first step to understanding how flight is even possible.
So, these are the big 4. You've got thrust from the engines, which is pushing the plane forward, and it's always fighting against the backward pull of air resistance, which we call drag. At the same time, you've got the force of weight, good old gravity, pulling it down, and that has to be overcome by the upward force of lift. Now, for a plane to fly straight and level, these forces have to be in perfect balance. To climb or to speed up, the pilots have to carefully, intentionally, tip that balance. It's this constant, delicate act that defines every single moment of a flight.
Okay, so let's talk about the most fascinating force of all, lift. I mean, this is the one, right? This is what separates a plane from just being a very, very fast car. And the secret, as you're about to see, is all about the unique shape of the wing.
It really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How can air, which feels like nothing, how can it possibly hold up a commercial airliner? Well, the answer is all about manipulating the very air the plane is flying through. And it's a principle that's both surprisingly simple and just incredibly elegant.
Before we get to the wing itself, let's just look at this spinning cylinder for a second. The airflow over the top is actually sped up because of the spin, while the air flowing underneath gets slowed down. This difference in speed creates a difference in pressure, and that pressure difference generates a force. This is called the Magnus effect, and it's the core idea we're about to see applied in a much, much more sophisticated way.
And here it is, that more sophisticated solution, the airfoil. Now, this is not just some random shape. It is a meticulously engineered cross-section, and it's designed to do one thing exceptionally well, manipulate the flow of air to create that all-important upward force.
So here's the key. The airfoil has that curved top surface, and that shape forces the air to actually speed up as it flows over it. Now, a fundamental rule of physics called Bernoulli's principle tells us that faster-moving air has lower pressure. At the same time, the wing is also deflecting air downwards. And thanks to Newton's third law, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, that pushes the wing up. So it's this pressure difference, lower pressure on top and higher pressure below, that generates lift.
Okay, so we've got lift, we are off the ground, awesome. But, creating lift is really only half the problem. Now we have to make sure the aircraft can fly safely without just tumbling out of the sky. And that is where the science of stability comes in.
So what exactly is stability? Well, think of it as the aircraft's built-in tendency to correct itself. So if a gust of wind suddenly pushes the nose up, a stable aircraft will naturally want to bring its nose back down to where it was. This self-correcting ability is absolutely vital for control and, for a smooth ride.
Now, stability isn't just one thing. It's a balance across 3 different axes. As you can see here, you have longitudinal stability, which is mainly handled by the horizontal tail, and that stops the plane's nose from pitching up and down wildly. Then you have lateral stability, which stops the wings from rolling side to side. This is helped by that slight upward angle of the wings, which is called dihedral. And finally, you have directional stability, managed by that big vertical tail fin, which keeps the nose from swinging or yawing from left to right.
All right, so we've built a stable aircraft that can generate its own lift, but what happens when we want to go really, really fast? Well, as we start to approach the speed of sound, the very nature of air itself seems to change, and a whole new set of rules just comes into play. So at the speeds we've been talking about so far, we can basically pretend that air can't be squeezed or compressed. It's a useful simplification. But as an aircraft rockets towards the sound barrier, that assumption completely falls apart. Air starts to pile up and compress in front of the plane, and it creates these powerful shock waves.
So what is that famous sonic boom? Well, as the plane gets closer and closer to the speed of sound, the sound waves that it's creating can't get out of its own way fast enough. They just pile up into a single, massive shockwave of compressed air. The boom you hear is the sound of that shockwave passing over you on the ground. The plane is literally outrunning its own sound. To navigate this high-speed world, we need a whole new ruler for speed, the Mach number. It's pretty simple, actually. It's just the ratio of the aircraft speed to the speed of sound. So, at Mach 1, you're hitting the sound barrier. Anything above that, and you are officially supersonic.
And here's a pretty cool piece of history for you. The term Mach number wasn't even coined by the guy it's named after, Ernst Mach. It was actually proposed by an engineer named Jacob Ackeret way back in 1929. It just goes to show you how relatively modern the science of high-speed flight really is.
So, we've looked at forces, we've looked at lift, stability, and high-speed flight. Now, let's bring it all home and see how all of these individual pieces are woven together into one incredibly complex, yet beautifully functional system. And at the very heart of all of this is some seriously complex math. The Navier-Stokes equations, named for the two scientists who developed them, are basically the master recipe for how fluids, like air, are going to behave. They tie everything together: lift, drag, turbulence, even the incredible heat generated by friction at supersonic speeds. They are so complex, in fact, that finding a general solution to them is still one of the biggest unsolved problems in all of mathematics. And yet, engineers use them every single day to design the aircraft we fly in. So let's just do a quick recap of the key takeaways here. Lift. It comes from those pressure differences created by the airfoil's shape, thanks to both Bernoulli's principle and Newton's third law. Stability. That's the aircraft's crucial ability to self-correct. At high speeds, the compressibility of air completely changes the game, and we measure all that with the Mach number. And underpinning everything are those fundamental equations of motion that tie it all together.
And that brings us to our final thought. You know, we've mastered subsonic flight and we've mastered supersonic flight, but right now, as we speak, engineers are developing hypersonic vehicles like the X-43 that can fly at nearly Mach 10. And at those speeds, the rules are changing all over again. I mean, at over 5 times the speed of sound, air doesn't just compress. The heat is so intense it can actually tear air molecules apart, changing its chemical properties. So the real question is, how will our understanding of these fundamental forces have to evolve to conquer this next frontier of flight?